and the Malcolm X grassroots movement for having this forum at this particular point in time. It is important. Thank you for coming out here. It's raining, the wind is blowing, but it's a whole lot blowing out there that we're going to have to deal with. And I am just so happy to be on. I thought they were going to still be sitting up here. And I was going to say I was happy to be on this side of the table with them and not them on the other side talking at me like it used to be. I'm so happy not to be nobody's elected official anymore. I'm in rehab. I'm a recovering public official. I never was a politician, but I've been recovering. But I see so many folks, and I have so much to say, and I know I can't say it because y'all didn't save me no time. But because when I left here, some folks said I sold out, some folks said I ran away. But when I left to go down and be with Brother Chokwe, a brother who I had been on the battlefield with for over 40 years, to be a part of his administration. And I am so happy that I did. Now, I could have stayed here. I could have kept my job, because I took a pay cut when I left, because Chokwe didn't believe in paying us anything. He didn't want folks to think that he was bringing all these folks in and paying them a healthy salary. So I took about a $30,000 cut after they had already cut us here. But that was not the issue. That was not why I went. One, I met Kevin Orr. I was convalescing at home, had a number of surgeries, and I know folks said I was dying. I had cancer and I was going to Alabama to die and all of that. Well, we all are dying and we all will die, but I'm not dead and I don't intend to die anytime soon. But I did have some health challenges and I had to deal with them. Sometimes you have to deal with things. You try to keep moving and wonder why, and you're not at the table at a very crucial time that you have to be there, but I had to deal with it. I had 3 surgeries, and one in September, one in August, and the final one in March of 2013, which was the takeover, right? And so I came, I met with him, and I told him probably before I told you that I would not be serving under him. I was not elected to serve an emergency manager. And it didn't matter what people were saying, that he was a good guy and all of that. It was clear this man was the bankruptcy king. You don't bring in a plumber when you got an electrical problem. You bring in somebody who deals with electricity, who deals with the electrical things. So they brought in a master in bankruptcy, even though he was saying, well, no, we're not going to do all of that. That was a manufactured bankruptcy. It was an induced bankruptcy. And when they talk about, and they were telling us, the workers, they were telling you that they needed to cut, what, $200 billion? That the long-term debt was way up there. The numbers were way up there. And then when you look at it, they only cut, what? 7? What happened to the rest that they were supposed to cut? Over $170 million went to lawyers and experts and bankers. Jones Day got $57 million of your pension money. $170-some million of your pension money. That bankruptcy was profitable for some people, but not for the people here. So, but I went down to work with Brother Chokwe. You know, we didn't, and before the brother go who asked, what should we do? The first thing, and I don't have, Sister Shoshana was wrong, I don't have the answer. I have one answer. But the first thing that we should do is not divide over each other over what needs to be done. That's right. Because we have done that too many times. This one got this, solution. This one got that plan. The one over here got that plan. Well, they're all plans that we have to get with someone who we can best operate with, because there's enough to do for all of us. Yeah. But if we start saying, well, you know, I'm a new African, I got the plan. Well, I'm a Pan-Africanist, I got the plan. Well, I'm a multinationalist race, I got the plan. I believe in race and class, I got the plan. Well, we all got the plan. It's some of all of that. What Brother Chokwe was able to do, and I was the mentee of his, and he would always break things down very clear. He said, this is an empire. America is an empire. And yes, race is an issue, a major issue, and class is an issue. We understand all of that. We have to understand that our brothers and sisters in Hawaii have to be connected to this struggle. We don't think about that all the time. We go to Hawaii on vacation. They want their land back. They say they never consented to give up their land. They never signed the treaty to give up Hawaii. They want their land back. Native American people, they want their land back. Chicanos, Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rico is a colony. Guam, Micronesia. Oh, those are colonies. This is an empire. We sometimes don't understand that. This is an empire. It's an evil empire. That's right. And so when we see things like giving people water with lead in it, killing and injuring our young people, not providing enough money to educate them, but you put over $35,000, $40,000 to contain them in the prisons when they commit a crime based upon some of the stuff that you have pumped inside of them. Something is wrong with that. Something is wrong with that. And Brother Chokwe was able, when we talk about his legacy, and I'm jumping you, when you talk about his legacy, you got to talk about leadership. The brother provided leadership. But the interesting thing about his leadership, you had to catch up with him to be led by him. Because if you wasn't catching up, he was gone. But he also provided an example of that leadership. He showed you. He didn't just tell you what to do. He was showing you what to do. If there was a floor that had to be mopped, he grabbed the mop first. If you got arrested, and this is a true story, and I know many of you have heard the story. We did it in Battle Creek. You go up and take over something, and you go to jail, and they say, well, where's your lawyer? You say, well, there he is. He in jail too. We had to literally bail him out so he could come and bail us out. That was the kind of example that our brother showed. He was graceful in his involvement in the movement down to the very last. He had the ability. He showed that ability not only in the courtroom, but on the battlefield. If you had to break down an M16 blindfolded, he was doing that right with you. And when he decided to run for city council first, after I had ran for city council, there was a discussion because we didn't involve ourselves in electoral politics. We felt that it was corrupt to the core, and I haven't changed from that. Feel that it is corrupt, that it is confusing, and that it is compromising. 3 C's. And it's all of that. It is all of that. But Helen and Brother Paul Taylor, if you can remember, we were having a discussion at Woodward Academy about when the board sold us out on the male-centered academies. Mr. Patrick and the other folks, and we said, well, we're going to have somebody on there ourselves. And we engaged in a serious debate across the country in the Malcolm X grassroots movement about running somebody for election. Right. And I was the individual that ran and won with over 106,000 votes, and then ran for some other seats. But you know, I look back at that, and I was saying to Brother Malik Yakini, and I'm going to say it here today as well, I do think that we have to engage in the political process, because I'm in a place now where it really means a whole lot to our brothers and sisters in Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama, and I'm from Alabama. And they're doing something in the black belt in Alabama now, and they're cutting out. I understand they're doing it here too. Yeah. They're cutting and closing all of the Secretary of State offices. Yeah. Of course, they mandated that they have to have the ID card, right, the voter ID card, but if you can't get to it, right, and they don't have, our brothers and sisters, many of them down there, they can't get online. They don't have a computer in their home. They barely have a bathroom in their home in some cases. And so they have to go 16, 20, 30 miles just to register to vote. So you still have Jim Crow going on in those places. But it's important because our people did die. Even though the voting process is not what's going to set us free, but it's the process of influence. But I believe one of the mistakes that we as activists who are have an ideology and rooted in that ideology, we should support our brothers and sisters who get in it, but we ourselves should not get in it.
That's right.
Okay.
That's after being there for 16 years. And that's not because y'all marched on my house. That's not because y'all called me names. But it's because I truly understand that you cannot serve two masters. Okay?
That's it.
You cannot. And when people put you in a position to represent them, then they want you to represent them. But at the same time, some of the things that you know you can't represent on, but they put you there to represent them on. And you see certain things that need to happen, and you try to say that this is what needs to happen, but it can't happen that way. So I do still believe that we have to engage in the process, but at the same time we have to be very careful about who we put in that process. I've seen it with the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which I was part of that and the student movement at that time, and I saw different people rise up in there. They divorced themselves from the movement and from the organization, and then it became personal as opposed to organizational. And so if you're going to be involved in it, then it has to be led by the organization. And Brother Chokwe was very clear on that. When he came to office in the mayor's office, the meetings that we had were driven by the Malcolm X grassroots movement. They were not had at City Hall, but they were had. And so when we talked about it, we met with people from Nicaragua. You talked about going international. Yes. We do have to take this movement international. He was focused on that. We had people coming, meeting with us from Nicaragua. We were working on some things to bring some fuel into that community. We had the UAW brought people in from South Africa, from Nigeria, Brazil, because he had an international statue and people recognized him and respect him around the world. And so it was important to try to put together a movement through that form of government, and he worked up until the day that he died. I was in a meeting on his behalf on February the 26th, I believe it was, with Costco's. He was trying to create 250 jobs for folks inside of Jackson. Now we know about Costco's and Walmart and all of those folks, but he also understood that people had to eat.
Yeah.
He had to eat. And then when he got them to the table, then he began to talk about moving that salary up and some other things. We do support the $15. And I've heard people who said, we do support that. We do support that. And I've heard people who said, are you kidding me? You gonna give somebody $15 an hour for flipping a burger?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You know how much money we as New Africans, as black folks give McDonald's each year? $600 million. That's how much we give them.
That's not including other people.
$600 million. That's just McDonald's. So if you add in Wendy's and Burger King and all of the rest of them,
Subway.
don't tell me they can't pay $15 an hour. They can. Because these individuals don't get tips. If you work in a restaurant, you get a tip. So you may get that $15, $16, $17 or whatever, but they're not getting that. It is a human rights issue. And so those are the kind of things. But Brother Chokwe called the office around 2 o'clock that day to check and see how the meeting went. Because some folks didn't want Costco's to come in. They didn't want them in there. And the reason they didn't want them in there, because they knew that the folks who were going to get the job, as you say, low-income individuals. They didn't care if they were black or white, but in most cases, in Jackson, they were going to be black. They were going to be black. And they had already taken a position and told him and us that they were not going to give the land. So Brother Chokwe proposed an alternative land site for Costco's. They said that they would look at that. And so his last assignment, his last working, was to try to make sure that people had a way to feed their families, a way to clothe themselves and house themselves, a decent job. And in about half hour to an hour after that, we got a call that said that you all need to get down here. And so we went down there. You know, I had never seen my brother inactive. I've never seen him laid out and unable to move. But he had fought his last fight on this level. And so that is what happened. I am so happy that I had an opportunity to be with him those last 9 months of his life.
Died with his boots on.
And so the struggle, as he would say, continues. He said once to me, we were in a meeting, we were talking about how hard it is to get something. He said, "You say you're a revolutionary, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, revolution is about change. We're about change. And we can't just assume that because we are here that everybody agree with and everybody believe in everything that we're talking about. We have to go out to the people. And we have to mix ourselves with them and with the program, as Brother Jamil Al-Amin said, the people got a program. They have to live, they got a program. What they don't need is you telling them ideology. They need to know how to make that program work. They need to know how to make some things work. And so that is what Brother Chokwe's legacy is about. If he was here, he would be in this fight. Let me just say a few things about this bankruptcy. And, you know, this whole takeover, as I said, started a long time ago. Long before the school takeover, it started as the decline of the automobile industry. All of these motor companies began to shut down, as Sister said. All of that happened, and people was losing jobs. They were seeking other, what capitalism does, they seek other markets, cheaper labor. And so they moved out, and these began to close. And as they closed, then people started moving out as well, in particular on the east side and various other places. And you did have that element of racism in this city, where certain folks didn't want you to live in their neighborhood. They had a covenant in the house in order you couldn't get a house in a certain neighborhood. And there were people who were beaten. Over 250 families were attacked on the east side of the city of Detroit, moving into certain neighborhoods. Nobody allowed us in. We had to fight our way in to those neighborhoods, not because we just wanted to live with some. If you remember, people were coming up from the south.
That's right.
They call it the Great Migration. Somebody called it the Negro Invasion. Because people were coming up from Alabama, they were coming to Detroit, from Mississippi, they were going to where? Chicago. In various places. Why? Because they wanted those factory jobs. My brother came up here, my uncle, others. That's how the family got here. Once he got his job living with our uncle on the east side, then he brought us up here. We stayed on Bradley on a dead-end street where the window broke out. Reminded me of Chicago. And it was a dead-end street. It really was, still is a dead-end street. But that's how we got here. And they began to break certain things down and began to move out. And the suburbs was planned. They also tied in the water back then into the suburbs. They allowed them to buy into, that's how you got that interceptor out there and various other places. They allowed the suburbs to buy into the water. Once they bought into the water, water is important. Water is a human rights issue. This city was built by the water. All wars are fought near or by or for the water. You can't live without water. That is not done. That's why, misunderstanding or not, and I may have been wrong, but the water system that we had, that we don't have anymore, we owned it. And we had to make sure that the infrastructure, so I didn't support the 9%, but I did support the 7% because our mayor at that time said that Vikings is going to come in here and take this thing if we don't do thus and so, if you remember. And so we said, fine, but we also going to support the water affordability plan. And I know my sister said, well, make them approve that first. I understand that. But we had to get it where at least supports, if you own something, you got to take care of it. You got to own it. And that's what we saw in Jackson as well. But it is important to be clear about what we are fighting for. We're fighting for the dignity of people. The dignity of people. I did ride around the city since I've been here. I see some lights are on. But I see the lights in our community are still out. I still see that a person who breaks in your house can break in your house, have something to eat, take a nap, get up and leave before the police come. But you can't do that in Midtown. You can't do that in Midtown. They have the police falling over each other. They got the Wayne State Police, the Medical Center Police, the Dan Gilbert Police, and then the police. They got over 500 cameras tuned in the downtown area that Mr. Gilbert put up himself.
That's right.
He ain't your big brother, but he watching. These are the kind of things that are going on. Folks, we did move out. Some folks did move out, and some folks was ran out. With the mortgage crisis, they ended up having to leave those houses. When Coleman Young came in, he was not the beginning of it. He didn't tell folks to leave Detroit. He told, quote unquote, the hustlers, the pushers, the B&E artists, he said, hit 8 Mile. And other folks used that to hit 8 Mile along with him. And so they said, well, he was kicking us out. Well, if you're the criminal, go. But so folks left. So you had white flight. As you said, it was over 2 million people in this city. And then it began to shrink and shrink, and the suburbs began to grow to over 4 million, 5 million in the metropolitan area. But they didn't give up the land. They didn't give up the structures that they owned. They became slum landlords. And some of the people who couldn't afford to do it had to live in those buildings, and they didn't fix them up. So what did that do? It drove the value down. It drove the value down. And then when we could, because under Coleman Young, under Maynard Jackson in Atlanta and various Hatchet, blacks did begin to increase their income, did become middle class. And so you had a growth in the middle class at that particular point in time where you could afford homes. And so people did begin to move. And some of us moved out into the suburbs as well. Now that was 10 or 15 years later, so we didn't get the good suburbs, we got the secondhand suburbs. We got what was left. Because as Malcolm said, you moved in and they moved even further out. Whether it was class or race, they left you there to figure it out. And so they moved further out. And we tried to get further out. Some said it was because of crime. Some said because we figured that the schools was going to be better. And so we moved out to get the good schools. But what happened? Folks took their children out of those schools and let you have them. So you ended up with the bad schools. So they said, we're going to have busing. But by the time they had busing, and the Supreme Court got involved and struck it down, so they said, we're going to have Detroit-only busing. Is that right? Yeah. Detroit, well, wasn't nobody to bust nobody to. They were all black. You going to bust me to myself? There was nobody, so that didn't work out. And so now what you see happening is a return. Folks have doubled back on you. They've doubled back on you. Yeah. And now you're not going to get back into those homes and in those communities. The property value now is going up. And some who are out there are stuck out there. Those of us who are here are stuck with the no services, no police. But somebody said, well, then what do we do? Police yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't hear me.
Yeah.
Is that what the Panther said?
That's what he said.
Police yourself. See, now we're talking about some struggle. That means somebody got to get up in the middle of the night and go patrol the community.
That's right.
That's what we had to do.
Yes, sir.
When we ran drug pushers out on 4th Street, they were attacking some families over there. We went over. They tried to shoot at us. We called Brother Chokwe and some other brothers, and we patrolled that neighborhood. We patrolled that neighborhood and dealt with that situation in the Smith Housing Project. We patrolled that. We didn't just march in front. We didn't believe in marching in front of dope houses. I'm sorry, I don't believe in marching in front of a dope house. We did what we needed to do to shut that dope house down. But that's something we have to do. If the community is unprotected, then we have to protect it.
That's right. We
can't talk about it.
That's right.
We got to protect it. We don't have to wait for Minister Farrakhan and 10,000. If you got 10 or you got 15 in your community, then start doing it. I know 300 did that and others. I don't hear anything about it now. Then we have to recreate some, because it's hard to sustain a movement. It's hard because it's not glamorous work. You got to do what these sisters do and what some of these brothers do in here, and that is get up and out and say things and get talked about and talk about folks and do all of that. And then you got to get up again and do it the next day. You got to keep doing that.
For free.
That is what this is about. And I'm so happy there's so many young folks. We got to give those brothers and sisters in Missouri another hand. Give them a hand. And University of Michigan. Give them a hand. You know, some of us, the students, I'll be 60 next year. I can't be called a youth anymore. I'm a grown man now. They used to say youth league. But the youth are important in any and every movement. They don't have compromise. Many of them don't have jobs, so they ain't got to get up and go to a job. They got to go to class. But then sometimes they close the school down and they don't have to go to class. But what they did was what this is about. No justice, no profit. This is a capitalist society. Y'all know that, right?
Yeah.
This is a republic, not a democracy. It's a republic. Indirect rule. It's not direct rule. And it's a capitalist society. And it's a racist capitalist society. That's what it is. And so we need to understand that. And you can't just say no justice, no peace. I'm down with no justice, no peace. But they got something for your no peace. They got something for that. And we saw it in Ferguson when they were looking down the scope in the barrel of that gun at those brothers and sisters who were boycotting. We should still do that. That's important. But when the students said, we want the chancellor fired, he said, I ain't going nowhere. I'm not stepping down. We got some issues that we need to talk about, but I'm not stepping down. But when the football team joined the struggle, and they said, we're not going to play football. We're not going to play plantation ball today. We're not going on the field today. So now what changed in a matter of 24 hours? The guy, I got on a plane coming here Monday morning watching the news. He said, I'm not stepping down. And I saw those brothers locked down on the football team, said, we're not playing. By the time my plane landed in Detroit, I believe about 4:30 on Monday, I turned the news on, and he had resigned. No justice, no profit. That's what that was. That's what that was. $1 million fine for not playing. $1 million. That was just the agreement they had with the team. I'm not sure who they were going to play, but they had the agreement that if they didn't take the field, they were going to lose $1 million, right? But the gate brings in more money than that. So now, not only did the chancellor leave, the president has resigned as well. And they said, well, this feels good. We're going to keep this moving. And then Michigan State said, well, it feels good to us. And the University of Michigan, now they're saying, well, let's reduce some of this tuition while we at that. So you got to have some victories in the movement, and you got to be able to show those victories. Some of us hardcore, we struggle for years without any victories, but you know, young folks got to see some victories.
Yes, they do.
And that was a victory for them because they hit them in the pocket. Another thing, Brother Michael Imhotep, that you pointed out when I was on the air, and I went and got the article because it was correct. Again, no justice, no profit. In Indiana, the governor said, I won't be moved over the religious, what was it called? The religious law?
Religious freedom law.
Religious freedom law. He said, I won't be moved. I'm not backing off of this. This is our law. I stand by it. That's my position, and I'm sticking to it. Then Warren Buffett stepped up and said, no, I don't agree with that. NASCAR said, I'm not taking a position on this, I want y'all to know that, but on what they were fighting over, but I want to tell you how they resolved it. NASCAR said, we're not supporting you on this, Governor. The NBA said, we're not supporting you on this. Angie List said, we're not supporting you on this. General Elected said, we're not supporting you on this. The governor said, I guess I'll back off of this. What was that? What was that? Money. No justice, no profit. But guess what?
Wait, look.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't see this list when Black Lives Matter.
That's right.
I didn't see this list over Sister Bland. I didn't see this list in Ferguson. I don't see these people coming out saying to the police departments across this country that feels that they can do what they did to Floyd Dent. And I watched the video. I'm in Mississippi where they hang folks, and I'm watching a legal hanging, not a legal hanging, a street hanging, where this brother is being beaten in the face over 16 times. They said the man was resisting. Well, if you beat me like that, I'm going to resist too. But he wasn't resisting. He was trying to cover his face. Every time they pulled his hand and they were hitting him, he tried to cover his face. And now I know the defense has rest, and I'm not sure what the verdict is going to be. But if it comes back wrong, then we're going to have to, this is not New York, this is not Ferguson, this is Inkster's Detroit, too. Then we have to shut some things down.
That's right, that's right.
Because it's clear that they beat that brother. So if he was drunk, if he had cocaine, whatever, your role is to apprehend, arrest, and then let the law take its job. Not street justice, not to beat folks down and shoot folks. So when we say no justice, no profit, the numbers are there. The African American community, then once we join with Native Americans, poor whites, people of color, then you're talking about trillions of dollars. See, they're waiting on y'all. I think they got Black Thursday now. They're waiting on you for Black Friday. They're waiting on you for Black Saturday. They're waiting on you for JC Sunday. They're waiting on you for Cyber Monday. They say they got that iPod. They got that smartphone that do dumb things. They got those TVs. And we watch over how many hours of television a day, so they know you want that television. They got a new television for you that'll put you to sleep. They got one that'll wake you up. Why? Because we have over $1.1 to $1.3 trillion to spend. And it's burning a hole in our pockets. My mama used to say, you got a nickel burning a hole in your pocket. What does that mean? You got to go spend it. Spend your money. You don't want to save it. You want to spend it. But if we do what they've done with no justice, no profit, if we say we support Black Lives Matter. Now, I for one believe that in America, Black lives have never mattered. I believe Black lives matter, but I don't think it has ever mattered in this country.
That's right, that's right. 400
years of enslavement, 400 years of beating me from can't see in the morning to can't see at night, to lynching, raping, tarred and feathered. Doing all of that, Black lives have not mattered.
That's true.
But I also believe that we have to make it matter to ourselves.
Yes, first.
First and foremost.
First and foremost.
Frederick Douglass was correct. If folks can beat you easy, they'll beat you often.
That's right. That's right.
They'll beat you often. And if you're beating yourself, if you're disrespecting your own women, if you're running around with your pants down and your hat turned around, and you don't know if you're going or coming, you don't know who you are or why you are, then other folks will disrespect you as well. We have to make Black Lives Matter. We have to help other folks understand the importance. And yes, all lives matter.
That's right.
We agree with that. We understand that. Our Native American brothers and sisters' lives matter. Everybody's lives matter. But we don't see others necessarily being beaten and killed like we see on the television and behind closed doors in our community. And we have to stop that. We have to check that. And the use of our economic power is just one tool. Just one. We got a lot of others that you've heard here today. You've heard here today. There should be a moratorium on water shut-off. I did see the notices that they're putting on people's doors for 7 hours. I've gone 21 days without eating, but I can't go 21 days without drinking. And basically, you wouldn't want to be around me. You got to have water. You got to have water. And I understand all of the arguments, but there's some things that we can do to prevent those shutoffs. Just like we did with the, you remember when Jim Brewer was down with Consolidated Gas, and we told him it was a human rights violation to turn people's gas off, and we caught some folks up in people's basements and made them do some things, turn on some folks' gas and stuff like that. Those things are important. Mr. Farrakhan touched on it during the Million Man March, but there has to be, and we've been talking about this for many years. Brother said there's nothing new under the sun. We've talked about this before, but we haven't really used it. And if we don't use it, we're going to lose it.
That's right.
We don't use it, we're going to lose it. Same thing with Detroit. Detroit, our spending power in Detroit is about $19 billion. Again, that's just the black community. $19 billion that we're spending. And less than 2% goes to a business owner that looks like us. That's important.
Yes, that's horrible.
That's important. That we have some level of wealth and health. So Bob Law and others have said, let's take a look at the fast food industry. And I'm going to wrap this up. The fast food industry, and as I was looking at the $15 campaign, it falls right in with what we're talking about in targeting the fast food industry. Because the fast food industry is targeting us.
That's right.
They're in our community.
That's right.
We buy more fries. We're going to buy some when we leave here. We buy more fries, more Big Macs, more milkshakes and Cokes and all of that stuff than anybody else. I mean, the statistics are here. I'm not just talking. It's right here. They know. The numbers are here. We buy more of them. Millions. They even got a website dedicated just to us. What is it? McDonald's 365 or something?
Yeah.
I think is that their name? Black 3.